posts a video, and then disappears for a year. Already great at this YouTuber stuff, eh? Hi there. Sorry about that. I missed you very much, and I hope you're doing very well. I got this big old stack of Haruki Murakami books next to me. He's my favorite author. I've read every single one of them, and I think it'd be fun if we make a little tier list because A City and Its Uncertain Walls comes out on Tuesday. It is currently Sunday when this video is going to be posted, and I'd like to make a review of that. So I figured this video would be great to be able to reference so that you can kind of see where I stand with all of his other novels and short stories and all that. And so let's get into it. If you've never read any Haruki Murakami, what a perfect time to start. He's a magical realism author based out of Tokyo. So if you like other Japanese fiction, you probably know him, but you'd really love him if you haven't. And if you'd like to get into the genre, he's the perfect place to start. He's what got me into fiction as well. I was a nonfiction reader pretty exclusively, and then I read 1Q84 and every single one of his books right after that. So let's get started. Start off with first person singular. Now, I've noticed a lot of people who have never read a Murakami book tend to really enjoy this if it's their first. I think it's a great representation of him as an author. It's a short story compilation, and they have a little more body to them than some of his other ones. They're a little bit longer, and they're not quite as weird as some of them can get. And as far as representation of them, I think it's fantastic. It's a wild book, but if you like monkeys, definitely a great place to start. I really enjoyed it. I just don't think of this book when I think of his short story books. So personally for me, it's going to be a B. All right, next up we got A Wild Sheep Chase. I loved this book. This is technically book 2 of 3 in the Rat trilogy. However, I'd recommend you start here because you don't need to read the first one. You can go to the second one, third one, then back to the first one. That's the order a lot of people read them in. That's what I read it in. I think it was perfect. He really hits his stride in this book. It is a perfect balance of questions, answers, and confusion. I'm going to be biased. I love any story with mountains and snow in it, but yeah, this is just him at his best. Such a fantastic book. I'm going to give this one an A, only because there are better, but it's a really strong A. It's very good. All right, and speaking of which, let's move on. Dance, 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 the third book in the trilogy. I don't think it was as strong as A Wild Sheep's Chase. It was a good end. It was a good book. But instead of being kind of interesting confusing, it was a little more depressed confusing to me. It was a little sadder of a book, and I just didn't connect with the journey as much. It's a little slower paced, but there's some great characters in it, and a very reminiscent book for him. I enjoyed it. I think it was a good end, but not quite as strong as the second one. So I'm going to give Dance, Dance, Dance a B. All right, up next we got Hardboiled Wonderland at the End of the World. I loved this book. It's so good. I've recommended this book a lot. I think that it is probably one of his best representations of the more magical elements. So if you like the more magical side, you might be really into this one. It's very fun. It's a very almost cyberpunk, futuristic style rush through a city with no map. I mean, there's so many twists and turns in this book that leave you with a lot more questions than answers, and I think it's so much fun. And I really love this book. I'm gonna give this a very top of A. It's so hard for me not to put this in S, but it's only because the S tier books are just, they have something that this one doesn't. There's something there that this one's just lacking. But man, this is a really stellar book. I really enjoyed it. Speaking of S tier, up next we got Norwegian Wood. I mean, it's S tier. You already know it. You already know it's coming. This book is so good. The first time I read this book, I sat down and I did not get up until I finished it. It is lacking in the magical elements. There's no magical elements in this book. However, I think it's the perfect balance. It's not too long, and it's pretty short, but it's so dense for how short it is. And if you've never read a Murakami book, this is what I recommend. I mean, it's a very popular book. If you don't like all of his other stuff, you'll still probably like this one. Every person I've recommended it to a lot of people, and everyone's gotten back to me and told me they love it. So just give this one a go. This one's my personal favorite. There, I said it. It's the perfect balance. So there, top of S tier. No surprise. It's that good. Come on. Next up, we got Blind Willow, Sleeping Woman. I didn't like this book. I didn't think it was all that great. as far as short stories go, not his most compelling. They're a lot shorter and they're very rapid fire, and I don't connect. Birthday Girl's in here. That one's great. Outside of that, it's hard for me to even come up with a single story from this book. I don't go back to it. I don't revisit it. I don't think about it. I'm gonna give this one a C. It's not terrible, but there's better than this. So C. Oh boy. Next up we got Wind Up Bird Chronicle. Now I know this is a lot of people's favorite Murakami book. I didn't connect with it that much. It wasn't there for me. I don't know what it was. Maybe on my second read through, I'll enjoy it more. But as it stands, was just not my favorite book. I felt kind of lost, and what a lot of people attribute to 1Q84 being too long, I was perfectly happy with that length. I was not happy with this length. I think this book could have been shorter, and I didn't feel it. Didn't feel it. A lot of people do love this one. I thought it was pretty good, but that's it. It makes me feel like I'm missing something, like I should want to love it more. But it was a B. It was a B. It was a middle tier book for me. I just didn't connect with it. So yeah, Wind Up Bird Chronicle B tier. How did that happen? Ended up B. I thought about it all week. It didn't change. All right. Next up, we got Strange Library. A very interesting attempt. It's a weird story. I mean, this is probably his weirdest story, and I didn't like it very much. The book's very cool. It's a very cool book. It's got some interesting pictures, and it's fun. But what it's not is it's not a good book. I wouldn't I wouldn't really think about sitting down and reading this. So yeah, it's a cool little coffee table thing. That's about it. There's a cooler one. There's a cooler one. You don't need to you can skip this one. Yeah, D tier. It's not very great. Ooh, let's follow this up. The Elephant Vanishes. All my critiques of Blind Willow, Sleeping Woman earlier, opposite. I love this short story book. Second Bakery Attack is what gets me excited about literature. I love that story. It's so interesting. A midnight McDonald's robbery. So fun. This has a lot more short stories that I like to revisit. I've read this one a couple times actually. And I think this is probably, if you want to go, it's my favorite short story collection. If you want to go off that, then you can. I think it's fantastic. I don't think you can go wrong. This is such a great representation of him just having a lot of fun. So, yeah, I'm going to give this one Elephant Vanishes. I'm going to give it an A. I think it's fantastic. High A tier. Amazing. Wonderful book. All right. We got up next Win Pinball. This is his first book, and it is fun to read as the last one. It's got a lot of character. I just think you got a lot of other great books to read before that, so you don't really need to start with this one. I read this as my very last Murakami book, and I think it was very fun to do that way because you get to see this full totality of him as an author, and you can kind of see it in perspective of all of his other books. So do not start here. Don't do that. But as a final book, or if you want to end the trilogy of the Rat with it, I think it's fun. But I'm gonna give it a C just because it's not a very good standalone book, but it's fun in the right, if you do it the right way. It's a fun book. It's still good. It's his first, right? You gotta enjoy it. You can see just this giant gap of how far he's come as an author. And that's very fun. So cool. C tier. Ooh, After Dark up next. A very interesting book. I enjoyed this book a lot. It takes place over one night, and I think it's best to read in one sitting. It gives me this old Seattle noir vibe to it, and it's a lot of fun, but I don't think it's his strongest work, and the limitations he tried to impose on it, although very creative and lead to an interesting story, I don't think support it enough compared to the scope of his other books. I'm going to give it a B, but it's very interesting. It's got this jazzy feel through it all. And if you want to try something like that, it's definitely good. Not as strong as his other ones, but very good. So I'm going to give it a B. I think that's fair. That's fair. It's fair. All right, let's take a little break with the fiction. He has written 5 nonfiction books. Think of these as kind of their own rankings, so don't compare them. Don't compare them to the fiction books, but I have read them and I wanted to rank them anyway. So if you're looking for some more nonfiction about him, then you can go with these, I suppose. We got what I talk about when I talk about running. This book is more his memoir, self-written, and details some of his marathon career as well, which is pretty cool. A great book on getting to know him because he has not really done a lot of interviews or anything, so it's kind of hard to get a scope of who he is as a person, and this is a great way to get into that. This is a fun book. I'll give this one an A. And then we got Novelist's Vocation, a book on his writing and how he kind of approaches that. This one's good. I liked it a little bit less than when I talk about running. I'm gonna give it a B. We got T-shirts. This book's fun. This is like a coffee table book. Don't get this thinking it's a book to read. It's more just to flip through and enjoy. It goes over some of his fashion tastes and everything. It's a fun book though, and I enjoy owning it, but not a super great read. I'm gonna give it a B. Then we got Underground, which is his more journalistic attempt at cataloging the 1995 Tokyo gas attacks. Really interesting historically. If you are not really looking for a historical book, it's good. It's just very repetitive. It goes over the same stories kind of a lot in context of each other. It's an interesting read, but I kind of had to struggle through it a little bit. I'm gonna give it a C. And then we got Absolutely on Music, which is his conversations with Seiji Ozawa, the conductor. As a classical music fan, this book is so cool. This is such a fun book. Just detailing some conversations while he was recovering from cancer, Seiji Ozawa that is, and I think it's a ton of fun to read. If you're not into classical music, probably not for you. I'm gonna give it an S tier because it was very fun for me. But if you don't like classical music, not gonna be for you. But this is my list. It's my list. I'm giving it an S. I think it was very fun. But yeah, all of those are kind of in their own tier. Don't compare them to the fiction. And now let's get back to the fiction books. All right, let's get back over to the fiction side of things with A South of the Border, West of the Sun. I really enjoyed this book. It's a nice mix-up. He has very competent characters in this, very strong characters. It's got a much more driven vibe to it. This is kind of a book on vibes, maybe jazz club, dark library. It's a little more darker toned and darker themed than some of his other books, which is saying something. But I think as far as kind of more short novels, this one is a very strong addition. I enjoyed it a lot. I don't think it really changed my opinion much as him and an author, but it's a nice mix up from his usual stuff. So I'm gonna give this one a B. Solid book. Now this is a polarizing one. We got Killing Commendatore. I will say that what I've noticed with Murakami specifically is that a lot of people tend to kind of associate the time in their life with when they're reading the book. And this book was at such a perfect time. Just a quiet, nice, relaxing week, kind of reading by myself. And so the style of this book in particular just went so well with that. I really enjoyed it. This is a very strong book for me. Now, some people do not like it. Not a lot of stuff happens in this book. It's a lot more slower paced. It's probably the longest and slowest paced. And to me, it feels more like a meditative walk through a forest. I think scenery wise and kind of description, one of his best books. I am going to give it a high A. I really liked it. But if you're looking for something a little more fast paced, then not gonna be this one. But if you want a very meditative, slow, artistic walk, then it's a really solid book. All right, Sputnik Sweetheart. I did not connect with this book at all. I had to kind of go back through it to do this video because I hardly remembered anything about it. I didn't like this book very much, and I was happy it was over. I just didn't connect with it. Not for me. If you love it, that's great. But I don't see why it was not for me. So I'm gonna give this book a D. I think that you should leave this one towards when you're just finishing up him as an author. There's a lot stronger books by him to read. I didn't enjoy it very much, but that's okay. It's there. It's different. It's it's different in the way that it's not as good. So sorry, Sputnik Sweetheart. That's a D. And this next one could not be more different. We got Kafka on the Shore. I loved this book. It is so good. You have perfect pacing. You have cats, lots of cats, and you got some incredibly bizarre and compelling characters. This book is fantastic. Cannot go wrong with it. It's so hard for me not to recommend this one over Norwegian Wood. I think Norwegian Wood is just a little easier to get into, and the pacing's a little bit better, just a little bit. This book's a little bit longer, but you will not be bored through any of it. I promise. This book's so good. If you want to start with one of his more lengthy and a little more surreal and magical novels, this is the one to go to. I think this is fantastic. It has one of my favorite scenes out of any of his books, and you really can't go wrong with it. It's so good. This one, yeah, S tier, easy S tier. Okay, we got After the Quake. I didn't really connect with this one all that much. These are stories based around the 95 earthquake in Kobe, and although nice to have thematic short stories, I like that a lot. I just didn't really feel it while reading, but it's not to say it's bad. There's the manga collection, which is very fun if you'd like to read in more of that style. Very interesting, a full illustrated version of this, but yeah, just wasn't really for me. Some of the stories are pretty good. I just don't really go back to it like I do some of the others. So I'm gonna give After the Quake a C. Give it a C tier. I think that's fair. C. This next one is very interesting. We got Colorless Tazaki and His Years of Pilgrimage. This is a very interesting book and kind of out of place in his catalog. But if you want to read something that is very meditative about the people that come in and out of your life and the nature of interpersonal relationships, this book is a Murakami going over that, and it's just, it kind of sticks out compared to the rest of them, and it's just one of those books where you read and you put it down and go, like, man, I should call them, or I should, and it kind of hurts, but in a good way. It's a good pain. And so for that, I'm gonna give it a B. Man, now I'm back in my feels. It's a B. It's a B. It's a good book. Men Without Women. I have noticed a lot of people, a lot of first-time Murakami readers do gravitate towards Men Without Women. They're definitely denser, and if you are looking for stories focused around love specifically and relationships, then this is definitely one of my favorite short story compilations that is specific to that. But some of them are quite sad. And I personally noticed that I've revisited this book a lot, and a lot of these stories have really stuck with me. It's a very strong book. It's not as creative as I think he can get, which is something I really value in his writing. So it's not my absolute favorite short story collection. That still goes to Elephant Vanishes. But if you're looking for one specifically about relationships and love, this is, I think, his best focus on that topic. So really compelling compilation, short story collection. I'm going to give this one an A. It's where it belongs. It's what it deserves. It's a fantastic book. We'll give it an A. All right. We are down to our last book. Did I save the best for last? Some people would say yes. Others would say no. I would say, yeah, it's 1Q84. I don't understand why people don't like this book. Some people say it's too long. It dragged on. I disagree. Now, it's not quite as efficient as Norwegian Wood, but man, is this book fantastic. But it does so much more than Norwegian Wood. It's such a enormous scope for a book, and I think he nailed it. I wish it was even a little bit longer. I mean, I have In Search of Lost Time back there, so I'm used to long books, but this book's amazing. I was so hooked from the start. This was my first Murakami book, and after the first chapter, I couldn't put it down. I mean, I tore through this thing. I finished it in 2 days, and it's fantastic. You will not regret reading it. It is amazing, even if you just appreciate it for what he managed to accomplish in it. Would I recommend it as your first one? Maybe, if you're brave, but no. I think Norwegian Wood is a little bit denser with its literary accomplishments, but read this early. I mean, it's so good, and especially if you like his style, it's him at his best. It's him at his best. You can't argue it. Okay, it's amazing. S tier, easily. S tier. Come on. Well, that is all of them. That's all of them. Thanks for making it through. If you made it this far, I really appreciate you. Let me know if you are going to pick one up. Let me know which one you're going to pick up. Super excited. Hope you enjoy. And if you disagree with any of the placements on my list, keep your opinion to yourself. I'm fragile. Really enjoy you guys hanging out with me, and I missed you very much. I'm past 300 books read this year. I'm closing in on 365, and so we're going to be making a lot of stuff about that. And I got the review of his new book coming out next week. So if you are interested in that, make sure to subscribe, stick around for that. And love you very much. You take care, guys. See you around.